Still on the search of that one true love? On the limbo in this crazy world of dating, marriage, relationships? Well, listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, your one-stop podcast for everything about relationships.
Hello and welcome to the GSMC Relationship Podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by adamandeve.com, where for a limited time only, you'll get 50% off of just about any item on their website. Just go to adamandeve.com and type in the promo code RELATION. That's RELATION. Let's get on with the show. So, as I said, it's the GSMC Relationship Podcast. You probably knew that as you're tuning in. I am your host, Sarah, and I hope you're having a great week. It is Monday, and tomorrow's Halloween, so that's always fun. It's kind of the start of the holiday season. I know we tend to skip over Thanksgiving a little bit in the world of in the world, we tend to go straight from Halloween to Christmas in terms of commercials, decorations, store things. Actually, Christmas and Halloween tend to exist side by side for sometimes a couple months, depending on when stores start putting out their Christmas stuff. So it's always a little weird to me when I go into a store and on one aisle is Halloween and the next aisle is Christmas. And I actually really love Thanksgiving as a holiday, and I love to decorate for each holiday. So I wish we didn't skip over Halloween or Thanksgiving so much, because it would be nice to be able to find more Thanksgiving decor, more Thanksgiving themed things. So I don't know. That's just my opinion, and you don't have to listen to it at all. So my point is, we're coming up on the holidays, and holidays can be interesting. They can be fun. They can be difficult. They can be tricky to navigate in terms of your diet and exercise, because starting tomorrow with Halloween, we have all that lovely Halloween candy that might be left over from our trick-or-treaters, or that our children bring home in their baskets, and it's there tempting us to just partake, right? Holidays can be, and it doesn't get better, because once Halloween's over, then Thanksgiving hits, and that's just an excuse to eat your weight in turkey or whatever your family serves, because there's lots of different traditions. And then Christmas pretty much takes up the whole month of December in terms of holiday parties, office parties, all the different groups that you're involved in, your kids' schools. There's cookie exchanges. It's like calorie palooza. So that makes it difficult. But what about holidays and relationships? Relationships can be hard at the best of times, and they can be even trickier during the holidays. If you are newly in a relationship, or even if you've been in a relationship for a very long time, figuring out how you're going to navigate those holiday traditions can be hard. Figuring out whose family you're going to spend this holiday with can be hard. If you're divorced, that can make it very difficult. Navigating custody issues, navigating just maybe the pain of the divorce if it was a difficult experience. There's so many things to take into account. And then, of course, when our loved ones die, we have a very difficult time during the holidays, because, of course, holidays are the time when we want to be with the people that we love, whether friends or family. And that hole that is left when a person dies can be so hard to be with. It's there whether you acknowledge it or not, and it can be very difficult. So navigating the holidays is difficult, not just from a caloric standpoint, but also from that relationship standpoint. It can be very difficult. So today I want to talk about some things that might help you navigate the holidays, whether you are in a relationship, a long-term relationship, whether you're single, any number of things. And I'm not going to take credit for this list. I am going to expand on the list and talk about what I think of the tips that are shared in this. But this list is actually from a blog called Baggage Reclaim, and that address is www.baggagereclaim.co.uk. So I don't want you to think that this is my list. I want to give Natalie, the author of the blog, full credit for this. And she writes 45 tips for surviving Christmas / the holidays, whether you're single, in a relationship, no contact, or brokenhearted. And so we're just going to go through some of these, and I'm not just going to read, I'm going to read her tips, but then we'll talk a little bit about each one and what we think how we think they might be useful in different scenarios. So she says, number 1, keep things in perspective. And what she's essentially saying with this tip is that it's one day. Yes, Christmas does feel like it lasts the entire month of December, but the holiday itself, whether it's Christmas, Easter, Thanksgiving, whatever it is, and I'm sorry, those were all very Christocentric holidays. I know that there are other holidays. I do apologize. But whatever it is, it's one holiday. It's one day out of the year. And yes, it's fraught with a lot of emotional peril and a lot of emotional baggage, but it really is just that one day. It's, of course, a special time, but and the commercials don't help, right? The commercials, the Hallmark movies, which I love. I just love to watch a good Hallmark movie, but they're always so happy and everyone gets together in the end, and Santa brings the relationship back from wherever it's been and it gives it whatever it needs. So the commercial aspect of the relationships of the holidays doesn't help, but it's not forever. It's one day. It's 1 month if you need to think of the Christmas season as being that long. And just try to keep that in perspective. It might not solve anything, but it might help to just get you over that hump. Number 2, whoever you're with or not, she says, this time of year often gives you some quality time. What she's saying with this one is spend the holidays with someone you love. It doesn't have to be a lover. It just needs to be someone that you love. That can be friends, that can be family. And if you are in a relationship, obviously spend that with your loved one. If you are not in a relationship, spend it with your best friend. Spend it with your family. If you are away from home, and that can be so hard, if you're away from home, try to find someone to spend it with. And if you're uncomfortable inviting yourself someplace, because that can be a difficult thing, just saying, hi, I'm alone at Christmas. Can I come to your house? If that's uncomfortable, invite someone to your place. It doesn't have to be fancy. They might be alone as well. And just spend the time together. Use that time to connect with other human beings. And use that time, if you are by yourself, to give yourself some time. Sleep in. Pamper yourself a little bit, right? Just take advantage of the situation that you're in. Turn it to your advantage. Number 3, she says, when I was single, I made a lot of plans, relationship or not. And even when I was in a relationship, I didn't base the entirety of my plans on that relationship. So she says that for her, this relieved a lot of pressure. Obviously, it is amazing to have someone in your life to take to the holiday Christmas party, right? To not have to go alone. But you still are separate people. You live lives outside of one another. Of course, they are very, very, very entwined, but you are still an individual. And so don't get so caught up in trying to just wrap everything up in that relationship that you forget that, let's say you're a woman who has a girls group. You can still go out and do things with that girls group. It doesn't mean that you have to bring your partner to that. If your partner's a woman, even better, because then you can bring, well, you know what I'm saying. I'm saying you don't have to do everything with your partner. This is true of whatever time of year it is. So it's all about boundaries. It's all about finding those things that are going to just keep you a little bit sane. So make plans. That's her second. That's number 4 for her. Whether you're in a relationship, whether you are single, whether your heart has been broken, whether you are in grief, make plans. And now, if you're in a place where you just feel like you absolutely cannot possibly make plans, you need to you obviously need to explore your own feelings on that. You need to look at the depth of emotion that's going on. Is that just a low level of brokenheartedness, or is it indicative of something deeper, clinical depression, those sorts of things? You need to pay attention to that. So you don't have to make plans, but if you don't feel like leaving the house at all, and you're not just a raving introvert, which can be fun sometimes, and just not leave the house, that's what I like to do sometimes, but it can also be a sign of something deeper. So keep track of that, but make plans. If you're single, it's not the worst thing in the world. It sucks when everybody around you is coupled, but if you want to enjoy your holidays, you're going to have to take some of that ownership. Make plans. Go out. Do something. Don't let your holidays be ruined because you're dreaming of something that doesn't exist. You're dreaming of being in that partnership. You're dreaming of what was. Make plans. Make it the best you can, and don't just rely on the fantasy of what you wish could be. So number 5, if it's your first Christmas, try not to over-prescribe. Just let things be. So if it's your first Christmas or first holiday together as a couple, you can end up just putting so much pressure on yourself because you want it to be perfect, right? There's so many firsts in that first year of marriage. It's wonderful when you get to have those first traditions, those first holidays, those first everything. But you can also put a little too much pressure on yourself and your partner and make it, you want it to be perfect, but you have years together to create those traditions, to carry on those traditions. You don't have to cram everything into that first Christmas. You don't have to figure out, for example, you don't have to take all of your traditions and all of your partner's traditions and smush them into the holiday and then somehow create your own amazing magical traditions. Too much, way too much. Talk about those traditions. Talk about what you love from your traditions. Let your partner talk about what he or she loves from their traditions, what their family does that they just love, what their family does that they're maybe not so keen on. And then you don't have to figure it all out that first Christmas. Make plans. You do have to figure out where you're going to spend Christmas. If it's by yourselves as a couple or with one of your families or with both of your families, you do have to navigate those things. But you don't have to put so much pressure on that first holiday. Even if it's Halloween together, you don't have to put so much pressure on that first holiday that you just stress yourselves out and ruin the day for what it is. Just relax. Doesn't have to be Pinterest perfect. It just has to be yours. Number 6, she says, set your own values about holidays. And this is kind of the same thing as number 5, right? Take those traditions that you love, make them into the traditions that you and your partner create together, but don't judge your traditions on what others are doing. That's not the way to happiness. That's just the way to crazy making. It's not ever going to really work. Don't worry. If your neighbor does like the crazy National Lampoon type lighting display, you don't have to do it. If that's what you love, go ahead. I mean, my husband would love to be able to have our house seen from a satellite with the number of Christmas decorations he puts up or the Christmas lights he puts up. Not my thing, but he's not doing it because he wants to compete with the neighbors. He does it because he loves it. He really does. So don't let your feelings of being judged affect your holidays. Don't worry about what the neighbors are doing. Don't worry about what this, that, or the other person is doing. You guys do you. Create your own traditions. Create your own holidays. Number 7, whatever your relationship status, treat yourself to something nice. And this one is lovely. You're in a relationship. You know you're going to get something hopefully wonderful from your partner, but treat yourself to that book you've been wanting to read. Treat yourself to something special that you've wanted to do. Treat yourself to, a pedicure, a manicure, whatever it is. Treat yourself to something nice, even if it's just a cup of coffee or, your favorite pastry. It's nice to remember that you are a person as well in this process. It's wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I love buying gifts during the holiday season. I love making dinner for Thanksgiving. I love having family and friends over, but it's also nice to remember that I deserve some of that as well. And, so do something nice for yourself, whether it's buying yourself something, whether it's giving yourself an afternoon by yourself, whether it's giving yourself an afternoon with your friends, whatever it is, do something for yourself. Number 8. She says, I hate to say it, but be prepared for exes to creep out of the woodwork with dumb texts, even sillier emails, calls to test the water to see if you're interested, and maybe even some protestations of how much they've changed. Oh, the holidays just give us such a feeling of nostalgia, don't they? Yes, we love that. We love the holidays for nostalgia, but holidays also, the nostalgia, yes, but they can also lead to some of that depression, some of that rethinking, and they lead to alcohol. So do not get sucked into the drunk text. Do not get sucked into that phone call. If it's something that you're hoping, it really depends. I don't want to put that out there, but no, if you've closed that door, you closed it for a reason. Unless there is an extraordinarily compelling reason to open it again, you closed it for a reason. So put some plans in place. Give yourself some backup plans for if that happens. If you tend to be the drunk texter, give your friend your phone. Just put some contingency plans in place for this one. So we are going to take our first break of the podcast, but when we come back, we'll be talking about more of these tips for surviving the holidays, no matter what your relationship status. Stay tuned and we'll be right back with the GSMC Relationship Podcast. Speaking of relationships, treating yourself to something nice, all of those things that come with the holidays, are you looking maybe to spice things up in the bedroom, to spice things up between you and your partner? Have you been fantasizing about surprising your lover with, an adventurous new toy or maybe an adult movie, something for a little something different or something more adventurous? Well, here's an offer that you're not going to be able to resist. Just go to adamandeve.com and for a limited time only, you'll get 50% off of just about any item. That's not all. They're not done. When you select your one item at 50% off, you'll also receive 3 free adult DVDs. Plus, not all, plus a free extra gift that is so sensual. I'm not even going to mention it on this podcast. But to top it all off, they'll even throw in free shipping on your entire order. No, they're not kidding. All of these things. Just check out adamandeve.com today for this special offer where you'll get 50% off of one item, just about any item on their website, when you type in the promo code RELATION, RELATION, for the offer code at checkout. When you do, you will get that 50% off the one item. You'll get your 3 free DVDs, a free extra gift, and free shipping. Free. Just use that offer code of RELATION at adamandeve.com. Again, that's RELATION, RELATION at adamandeve.com. Welcome back to the GSMC Relationship Podcast. We are talking about some tips for navigating the holidays, no matter your relationship status. Again, let me just say that this comes from a blog from 2010. The blog is www.baggagereclaim.co.uk. So this is not my list, but I am enjoying going through it and talking about it. And so let's get back to it. Number 9. Things getting tense about which family you'll spend Christmas with? Find a compromise that you can both live with. Sounds simple, and at the same time, it sounds insanely complicated, right? Depending on your family situation. Growing up, we did the same thing every year for Christmas. We went to my mom's parents' house on December 23rd because that was my grandmother's birthday, and we stayed until December 26th, the day after Christmas, obviously. We did the same thing every year until my grandfather died, and then many, many years later, my grandmother really got to the point where it was too much to have the whole family at her house, and so we started doing Christmas at my house. And while I hated it, I hated that we changed what I'd been doing my entire life, I'm also really grateful for it because it got me out of that pattern, that December 23rd to December 26th, Grandma's birthday on the 23rd, Christmas Eve with church on the 24th, opening presents on the 25th, and then home again on the 26th. It was the tradition. It was what I did. And if that hadn't changed before I got into a long-term relationship, I can only imagine how stubborn I would have been. So for myself, I'm really glad that that did change so that I could see that it doesn't have to be exactly what it was. Do I miss that tradition? Oh my gosh, I so miss it. I could talk for this entire podcast about my love of those 4 days. But it's not always going to be exactly the way you remember it. So you have to find a compromise that you can both live with. This might not be easy. You might find that it really is easy, but you have to find that compromise. You can't spend your entire relationship fighting every Christmas about whose family you're going to spend it with. Number 10. The other way to resolve the family at Christmas issue is to have your own Christmas together and then see your respective families on the days afterwards. Again, this goes back to creating your own traditions, right? But still maybe trying to respect your other traditions. This doesn't have to be exactly the way you do it, doing your own thing on Christmas and then going afterwards. You know, you might spend you could spend Christmas with one set of parents or one family and do your own Christmas the day before or the day after. There are all kinds of things that you can do to make navigating these relationships work. For myself, my family's in Montana. My husband's family is in Ohio. We live in California. So it's not always easy to get to either place for Christmas. So we really have had to make our own traditions and then figure out on those years when we are able to travel what we're going to do. But you got to think outside the box, right? I hate to say the cliche, but you really do have to think outside that box and figure out what's going to work and how you're going to make your own traditions. Number 11. This is a good one. Don't get back with an ex because you hate the idea of not being with someone for the holidays. Unless she says the reasons why you broke up no longer exist, and not just because you've painted over them with a lovely nostalgic frost. Unless you have an extraordinarily compelling reason, again, I will say you closed that door for a reason. This isn't a Hallmark Christmas movie. It does happen. People do get back together, but it's not a Hallmark Christmas movie. Don't get back with someone just because you don't want to be alone at the holidays. It's not fair to you. It's not fair to them. It's just a bad idea. Number 12, please state the nature of your call. Okay, she says, you don't have to say it like that, but if your ex calls and you answer, you need to get the definitive answer to the question of, why are you calling me? Don't just leave it up in the air. Don't let it be vague because you might think you're being extremely clear without actually saying, why are you calling me? And your ex-partner might think that they are being extremely clear, and you're not. Neither of you are. A friend of mine from college used to call this the DTR. Define the relationship. Figure out what you're both saying. Don't just let it go as vague and open-ended. Number 13. Sorry, I forgot about this one. Do not let your vagina or your penis make your decisions for you this Christmas. Or really any time for that matter. Urges happen. Urges need to be satisfied. But just because you're lonely or horny at Christmas is not a good reason to get back with your ex. It's just more of the same. Do not get drunk and drunk text your ex so you can have a one-night stand. Just seems like a good thing to keep in mind if you don't want to wake up the day after Christmas or the day after the Christmas party or whatever it is and think, oh my goodness, what did I just do? Number 14, no drunk dialing, dropped calls, emails to see how they are, calls to see how they're doing, or sending an innocent Happy Holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year text. Goes back to the drunk dialing. If you don't want them to do it to you, don't do it to them. You know, if you really are on good terms with your ex and you're already having these conversations where you drop each other, quick texts, how are you doing? Happy Halloween, happy Labor Day, whatever it is, that's cool. But don't do it just because you think it might be a way to open that door. Not the time to do it. Social media. Don't. If you follow them on social media, first of all, ask yourself why. If you're still friends, cool. But if you follow them on social media because you want to see who they're with, no. Get out there and create your own memories. Create your own pictures. Put them on your own social media. Eyes on your own paper, people. Don't live your life comparing it to others. It's kind of like that. Don't make your Christmas traditions around what your neighbors are doing. Try to keep that in mind when you're following someone on social media. Number 16. If you're with someone who has previously disappointed you by not buying you a gift, and now you're working yourself up into a lather, wondering if they're going to do it again, I would expect that they are going to, unless something very drastic has happened since last time. Basically, what we're saying with this one, what she is saying with this one is people don't always recognize what they're doing. They might have grown up in a family that didn't give gifts. I had a boyfriend in college who only shopped on Christmas Eve at the gas station. I didn't know this. Not the best Christmas gift. But unless you sit down and have one of those conversations where you say, we need to talk about this. And a lot of people are going to say, but I shouldn't have to. Well, maybe you feel like you shouldn't have to, but if that's a perfectly accepted tradition in his family, why would he not think that it would be acceptable to me? People don't always see it that way. They see it from their own perspective. So you have to have a calm and rational discussion as to why whatever happened hurt your feelings. And you have to actually name it. This made me sad, or this hurt my feelings, and I'm not trying to make you feel like crap, but I need to talk about why this hurt my feelings and what I would like to maybe see going forward. You can't always change a person in the way they do things, but you can have a conversation about it so that they can hopefully understand your perspective and where you're coming from. Number 17 is very, very important. Contraception. Just like you're not letting your genitals do your thinking for you, don't let the nostalgia get over you and you have a slip up because it's Christmas and you sleep with someone and you're not safe or smart about the contraceptive. It's never smart to not be safe with the contraception. You want to take care of yourself. You want to prevent STDs. You also might not want a baby to welcome next fall. Just keep that in mind pretty much always. But again, holidays can cloud our thinking. Are you involved with someone who is attached is number 18. Well, this could be if your best friend is married. It doesn't have to be an affair. It could be any number of things. But if this is your situation, you have to realize that they are in a relationship that doesn't revolve around you. So don't revolve everything around them. You, again, basically need to make other plans. on the same line of thinking, but from a different angle, don't spend the entire holiday season waiting for an ex to call. Just like, keep in mind that you shouldn't do the drunk dialing thing. You shouldn't send the innocent text thing. Don't. I know it's so tempting. It's so tempting to have hope, and hope is a beautiful thing, but hope can be misplaced sometimes, especially in relationships at the holidays. So just try to think of other things. Try to distract yourself with other plans, other friends. Just, don't spend the entire time waiting for something that probably isn't going to happen. This is a good one. Don't use the season as an opportunity to try to pressure an engagement, a wedding, or a baby, or really anything, any giant major decision. Just don't. We all love those car commercials where somebody gets the big fancy car with the bow on top, or, those jewelry commercials where somebody gets the giant engagement ring, and that's fabulous. But if you haven't already talked about it and you're not in the same place, don't try to use it to pressure them by capitalizing on the nostalgia. On that cheery note, we are going to take another break. So stay tuned to the GSMC Relationship Podcast, and we will be right back.
Do you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do? All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast, dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
And we're back with the GSMC Relationship Podcast, talking, of course, about this fabulous list of tips for ways to just keep yourself sane during the holiday season, specifically around relationships. So we're on to number 21. Our list is now old enough to drink. If you're getting really irritated because it feels like you're doing everything to prepare for the festivities, either delegate or roll back your efforts. This one's pretty self-explanatory. Not everyone is going to be as gung-ho as the next person. And so if you feel like you're doing everything and nobody else wants to do anything, you don't have to be the person that makes everything happen. It's going to exhaust you. It's going to wear you out. It's not going to be good. You're not going to enjoy the holidays. So if you are the person that loves to be the host, who loves to do the planning, that's great, but never at the cost of your own health, physical, mental, whatever. Dial it back. Don't stress yourself out. You don't have to make everything happen. There are other people in the world, and they, I know. It's hard to let go of those reins. It's hard to acknowledge that other people can do things, but they can, and we need to let them sometimes. Number 22, it's not all about the gift. It's not. Some Christmases don't need, I love getting gifts. I love giving gifts. It's so much fun, but it's not all there is. And her specific point is staying with someone just to see what they get you is not a reason to hang on. Yeah, I was going with it's not all about the gift in terms of there are other things around the holidays that we love and can bring us closer together. But yeah, do not stay with someone just because you want to see what they're giving you for a gift. On the other hand, I knew a young man a long time ago who would only date people if it wasn't any kind of holidays. If they started dating and let's say Valentine's Day came up, he would break up with them right before Valentine's Day. If he was dating someone and it was Christmas, break up with them. Yeah. It's not all about the gift, but it's also not grow up and don't break up with someone because you don't want to give them a gift. So, 23, don't go overboard and make demands about what you should get and what may or may not happen if people fail to get you what you want. Do not be a selfish person. Stop it. It's more than acceptable to tell people what you want if they ask. My family loves to ask, give me your Christmas list, and then they will get you something from it. My husband's family is the opposite. They would much rather not tell you. They want you to give them something because you thought of it and you created this plan and gave them a gift out of that plan. But do not decide that you are the only person who can decide anything. Yes, you're going to get gifts that you don't care for, but think of the place that it's coming from. If it's coming from love, then accept that gift for what it is. Do not make threats about what's going to happen if you do not get exactly what you want. It's Christmas. Don't be a spoiled brat. Number 24, remember you may have different values and beliefs about Christmas, which means that if you're in relationships, friendships, anything, you need to find a solution that you can both live with. Hopefully you had this conversation before you got married, but maybe you didn't. But you do need to or married, not even married, just it's going to come up at some point. Anyway, you don't want to be with someone and then suddenly discover that they hate Christmas when you love Christmas. Is it a reason to break up? Well, that's up to you and your partner, but you do have to work out if you're okay with that. Is that a deal breaker for you? You have to just, sometimes it's good to not be selfish, not be a party pooper, just accept what someone else thinks. But again, in relationship, you're going to need to figure out how to navigate that. Number 25, if you're thinking about breaking up, it's best to stop thinking about it and either break up or get on with enjoying your Christmas. She says, let's just read what she says. If you're not sure that you want to break up and suspect that you may knee-jerk back to the relationship after Christmas, do the person you're with a favor and keep it zipped so that you don't put them through hell. And again, kind of like that young man I was speaking about earlier who just didn't want to be in a relationship during the holidays. Well, yeah, don't just, Christmas isn't necessarily the time. Just like don't pressure into marriage and babies and houses and cars and whatever it is. Christmas is not the best time to break up because you're worried. It happens, of course, but don't use it as an excuse. Do not leave it until the last minute to either break up or change shared plans. That's a really, really crappy thing to do. If you have made plans with someone, now, of course, if you're in a relationship that is unhealthy, that needs to end for a variety of reasons, yes, staying in that relationship, if it's unsafe, if it is unhealthy mentally or physically, then do not stay in that relationship. But if you're having a normal relationship and you're breaking up, don't wait until the last minute. If you've already made plans with that person, let them know ahead of time so that they can make other plans or they can figure it out. Don't just leave someone hanging when you've made plans. It's just, come on, let's be grown-ups about this. Number 27, know your relationship is on the rocks, but insisting on keeping it together for Christmas, well, she said, I like what she says. Really, it's the difference between a crap Christmas or a crap New Year. You're putting off the inevitable. If you're putting it off after Christmas and then you put it off till after New Year's, well, heck, Valentine's Day is only 6 weeks away. I'm not saying break up at Christmas time, but better to do it than to hang on hoping that you can make it through one more holiday. If you have kids, I know the holidays can be really hard and that breakups do happen, but if you can at all possibly avoid it, don't break up during the holidays because your children will always associate that holiday with the demise of your relationship. with the demise of their parents' relationship. There is no good time for children to go through this, but don't put them through this at the holidays if you can at all avoid it. Number 29, if you do break up with someone, don't continue to screw up their Christmas by screwing with their mind. Again, with the calling, the texting, the emailing, whether it's drunk dialing or whether it's actually malicious. Don't do it. Don't just think about your feelings. You need to consider their feelings first. It's not about your ego at this point. Just clean break. Stop it. Number 30, if you're dating and you haven't made concrete plans by a certain point in terms of the holidays, whether that's Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, whatever it is, have a plan B. Especially if you're in the early days of being in that relationship, make sure you have a plan B, because your expectations might not be their expectations. Which brings us to number 31. Don't use Christmas to rush your relationship further along than it actually is. Going back again to not making those crazy big decisions. If you're new to the relationship, yes, Christmas can be a lovely, magical time. Again, we want those Hallmark moments sometimes, but you can't force them. Don't do something drastic that might hurt your relationship later down the line because you want that big, crazy Christmas moment and you want your relationship to be at another level. It's hard when it goes back to that comparing, right? It's hard when you see other couples in relationships that are at a different point than yours. And that could be whether they are in a long-term relationship and you are new to your relationship, whether they are new to a relationship and you're single, whether they have an established family and you are hoping for a family. I mean, there's so many variations on this. But again, you have to deal with the relationship you have in the stage that it's at. Do not compare. Don't try to create the situation someone else has. Number 32. Are you feeling anxious about Christmas with a partner? She says 6 magic words. What are your plans for Christmas? If you are in a relationship and it's newish, but you're not sure what's going to happen, just ask. It's that one. It's assuming never works because we're all assuming different things. Just ask. You need to know, figure it out. The worst they can say is, no, I don't want to spend Christmas with you, right? Number 33. Love is not being with someone who knows exactly what you want. This kind of goes back to that gift giving thing, right? We're not mind readers. Even though we're in love, even though we may know each other inside and out, we're still not mind readers. So don't expect your partner to know exactly what you want, whether that's for holiday traditions, whether that's for gifts, and this can be anniversaries, this can be Valentine's Day, this can be any holiday. Don't expect your partner to be a mind reader. If there's something that you want to do or some way you want to exchange gifts that might be different from what you normally do, you have to have those conversations. You have to create the space to have those conversations. Number 34 actually is a repeat. She says, don't use the season as an opportunity to try to pressure an engagement, wedding, or baby out of someone. It's so important. She said it twice. Number 35, don't reject the offer of plans with friends, family, and acquaintances because you don't want to appear lonely or desperate. Don't let your pride and ego get in the way of actually having a wonderful time with family and friends. If they're genuine in their offer, accept it. Again, it's like comparing. I know it's hard. I know it's hard if you don't want to be the single person in a group full of couples. But like she said earlier in the list, make plans. Try to get out. You are in charge of your own life and your own destiny and making yourself happy. No one else can make you happy. You have to do that by making decisions and figuring out what you want and creating the situation that you want. If you are tempted to get in contact with an ex, this is number 36, hold that thought. Wait at least 24 hours. Sleep on it. Talk to your best friend. Ask them to remind you why you broke up in the first place. Again, put some contingency plans in place. Don't get in touch just because it's the holidays. Seriously, she says, number 37. Don't buy a gift for your ex or send them a card. You'll just look weird. Unless you have an established relationship wherein you send each other a Christmas card, don't do it. It's just, yeah, don't do it. If you fall off the wagon, number 38, dust yourself off, get back on. If you go back on any of these things, if you do the drunk dial, if you do the Christmas text, if you do the, I don't even know, Halloween drive-by, whatever it is, don't wallow. Move on. Here's her advice, and it's good. You sucked, you saw, learn your lesson, and move on. And on that note, we are going to take our final break of the podcast. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back with the GSMC Relationship Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the final segment of the GSMC Relationship Podcast. We have been talking about this list for surviving the holidays when, regardless of your relationship status, whether that's single, recently broken up, a long-term relationship, in a new relationship. And I think that there's been some really good things on this list, and it's starting to repeat itself a little bit, but we are almost done, so let's just get these last 7 in, and we'll wrap things up. Worried about underspending on a first Christmas? Have a spare present hidden away so that you can say surprise. You can always return it if you don't need to use it. Yeah, I don't know exactly. It's not a bad plan. For some reason, this one kind of bugs me a little bit, and I don't know why, so I'm not going to talk through it during the podcast, but it's not a bad idea to have spare Christmas gifts on hand just in case. You never know what might come up, something kind of generic. But if you have one of those generic gifts that you give to your partner because he or she gave you more than you expected, that might seem weird also. So maybe that's it. Number 40, it's not the price of the gift that counts, it's the thought. I know, it's cliche again, it's the thought that counts, but it really is. It's the thought given to the gift that says so much. If someone if someone shops at the gas station on Christmas Eve, they might not have put that much thought into it. But if it's obvious that they put a lot of thought into it, and they say, this made me think of you, or I know you like X, Y, and Z, and so I got you this. Even if it's not to your taste, the thought was there. Number 41, this time of year can be a test for your boundaries. Absolutely. Particularly with family and friends. Everybody wants to do something during this time of year, and everybody has expectations, and you cannot please everyone. That is the point. You have to navigate those boundaries, and if you're in a relationship, you have to figure out with your partner how you're going to navigate those boundaries together. So have boundaries, have them in place, figure that out, have conversations. Number 42, if you're no contact, keep busy and have options for what you can do when you feel bored, so you don't look to your ex as a solution for the boredom. Again, this goes back to contingency plans. I know it sounds really boring and or depressing to have contingency plans in terms of the holidays. We just want to think about the holidays, right? But it's always better to be prepared. Over prepare. Be like the scouts. Be prepared. Number 43. This time of year is really tough when you miss someone or you feel awful because it feels like they don't miss you. This time of year is so hard when we miss someone or when we're wondering if someone misses us, but especially when we, or we're feeling rejected. It's so hard. But again, only you can move forward in this. Only you can figure out what you're going to do during those moments. Only you can create those boundaries. Only you can create the space you need to heal. And of course, there are people who will help you with that, but figure out what you need and put it in place. Number 44, if you're no contact, brokenhearted, or not spending Christmas with someone, put yourself on a diet. This one's interesting. This means setting yourself the task of focusing your thoughts and conversation on everything but them. Put yourself on a diet from them. So instead of like binge eating or binge watching Netflix, do not spend the holiday obsessively going over every text they've ever sent you, every picture you've ever taken, every whatever it is. Put yourself on a diet. A little bit of that is okay. Nostalgia can be okay, but do not use the time to binge on your past relationship. Again, contingency plans, boundaries, figure those things out if you know that you tend in those directions emotionally. And finally, number 45, use the festive season to give yourself the gift of forgiveness and a clean slate. She says there's no benefit for you to sit there beating yourself up about your relationship choices. You're human, you screw up, and either trust too much or trust in the wrong things instead of the right things. But spending the holidays blaming and shaming is of no benefit to you, or I would add anyone. It doesn't help. You can't change what's happened to you, but you can't change what's happened, but you can ensure that you counteract what has happened by, again, treating yourself well, making those plans, making those contingency plans, learning from those past, whether they're mistakes or just learning from the past. She says knowledge is power. She's right. But the holidays are also a time for family and friends and loved ones. And so they can be a time of forgiveness. Forgive yourself if you need to. Don't carry that weight around all of the time. So that is the 45 tips, again, from the Baggage Reclaim blog. And the blogger is Natalie. And I just, again, want to acknowledge that I read through her list, but used it as my template. What would you add to this list? What would you take off of this list, if anything? What are your methods for getting through the holidays, regardless of your relationship status? I would love to hear from you on social media if you have things to add to this list. I would love to hear, if you've been through an experience and you have good advice for someone else who may be going through something similar. We'd love to hear from you. So, you can find us on social media. We're at GSMC Relationship, and on Twitter, that's abbreviated. So it's RLATIONSHP. So GSMC_relationship, but without the first E and the last I. So you can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Tumblr, and we would love to hear from you on social media. You can also find all of our podcasts at www.gsmcpodcast.com. You can download those podcasts at iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play, any app that you use for your mobile device. You can find us there. And we would, again, love to hear from you on social media. So thank you so much for joining me. I know this was kind of Christmas-centric right when we are at Halloween, so I just did what I was complaining about at the beginning. But it's good to go into the holidays with open eyes. And tomorrow's Halloween, Thanksgiving is coming up, Christmas is coming up. Again, I apologize for the very Christocentric naming of my holidays. But if I know that there are other holidays that happen in there, and maybe there are similar things to deal with with different holidays in our culture. So have a plan in place. Figure out what you want from the holidays and have your conversations, create your boundaries, put your contingency plans in place, do all those things, and just spend the next 2 months celebrating and being with the people that you love. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you'll join us again next time for the GSMC Relationship Podcast.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Relationship Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.